Peace and blessings, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Asiya, where our mission and goal is to educate the community, the women, and the girls that they are raising. I am your host, Asiya Nasir Shahid, and welcome to a very special series that we're about to do for the month of June. This is part one of that, and this is the month of June, which is the month of Father's Day. This month, I decided to do this because I wanted to honor someone who was very special to me in my life, and that just so happens to be my father, who passed away 7 years ago. And so the next series of Conversations with Asiya is going to be dedicated to my father during this month of Father's Day, and we are honoring fathers that I know that are in our communities that are doing an awesome job with their kids. I was a daddy's girl, and so I understand the impact and the special relationship as it relates to having a father. And the reason why I felt like this was so important to have, not just honoring really awesome dads, is because in our communities, in the Black and Brown, Latino, Latina community, we always hear the narrative of the fathers who are absent, the fathers who are quote unquote deadbeat. And, it's to the point now where people question if in our communities, are there any good fathers? And Conversations with Asiya's mission is to educate, as I mentioned before, our communities. And as you will see in the next 3 series during the month of June, that there are indeed great fathers in the Black and Brown community. And this episode is not going to disappoint because we have some great dads on this show. And as you can see, they're here with their kids. Or at least some of their kids. And we have, and without further ado, I want to introduce our special guest. The first guest that I would like to introduce is someone that I have known literally since I was the age of 11. And we went to junior high school together in New York, Far Rockaway, Queens, New York. We went to junior high school 180, and that is where I met Curtis Williams. And Curtis was this really tall guy who was really popular, always had the, fresh to death outfit on and, played basketball. Look at Curtis, he like, yeah. And so, all of these years later, we've kept in touch. He's been doing some awesome, work in the community. But one of the things that I admire and love about Curtis and his character is that he is one of those awesome dads. He has 2 biological sons. One who is on the spectrum, which I also have a son that's on the spectrum, and he has a bonus son, of which I also have, and his bonus son, Caleb, is with us. So I would like to say hello to everybody, Curtis and Caleb.
How you doing? Appreciate being here. Definitely, I'm on it, and looking forward to a great show.
This is definitely going to be an awesome show. We have, like, as I mentioned before, we have some great fathers. And so I would love to introduce the next father, who I met about a couple of years ago in Atlanta, which is where he's from. It was an Islamic event, an annual event that we Muslims put on, at least before COVID anyway. And it's called the Riyada. And this is where I met Brother Ayyub. And just this year, I met his daughters, who actually run their own business. And he has 3 beautiful daughters with his beautiful wife, Ndola. And so as you can see, Curtis has all boys. So he's a boy dad, but I'm introducing a girl dad, which is Ayyub, all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, with his beautiful oldest daughter, Aziza. Welcome.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. It is so good to have you. Hi, Aziza. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So as I mentioned before, I've watched Ayyub with his family while we were there in Atlanta. I saw how he interacted with his daughters. I've had interactions with his daughters and his involvement. And so I really just want to jump right into asking these questions because I really would love to have the community hear of your journey in being an awesome dad. So I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Ayyub. What does fatherhood mean to you?
To me, fatherhood means giving an example of how a man should be in his home as well as outside of his home. Making sure that the example that I'm setting, not in word but in action as well, is one that they can kind of take to the bank, where they're like, this is what a man looks like. This is how a man should act. This is how a man should treat his family. This is how a man should treat his community. Just doing my best to give them that example, to the best of my ability, of course. And that's what fatherhood means to me.
Wow, great. Curtis, I would love to hear from you. When you hear the word fatherhood, father, what does that mean to you?
I mean, it means responsibility. It means that you have the opportunity to shape the life of little ones, and to guide them as they become great adults. And that's something I always strive for. Utilizing life as teachable moments for them, and to really just let them know that sometimes they look at us like we old, we don't know anything, but we've been through everything under the sun, and so it just recycles itself, and we try to make certain that we guide them accordingly.
That's yeah, those are all great, being that teacher, being that mentor, showing them what that looks like in real life, in real time is so important. So I would like to ask you, Curtis, as you talked about that, you talked about, kind of being that way shower for them. Was that your experience growing up? Did you have an engaged, present father in your life that kind of showed you what that looks like in being fatherhood, in what fatherhood means?
So for me, with my story, I didn't have that. I didn't have a father in my life steady. You think I'm 50 now. I didn't meet my father until late into my 30s. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. For me, I've always, some reason, had a sense of I know what was right. I try to parent my boys based on how I would want to be parent as a child. I've always gravitated to certain individuals in the neighborhood. So whether it was like Mr. Aaron who took us to baseball games, or individuals like that in the neighborhood that you can look up to, but I never had that constant father figure. So I was always searching for that. One thing I just made a conscious effort when I had my first child is that I was going to be better, and I was going to make certain that was, regardless of the situation, I was always going to be in their lives.
I mean, how old were you? How old were you when you had your oldest son?
Wow. I believe I was 20, 25, 25, 24. And so it was an experience, because it's your first one. It was nervous. And so I remember even when he came out, he was extremely pale. And I was like, wait, that's not my child. You know what I mean?
He
And
was
so
about to be on fraternity court.
yeah. And I think his grandmother looked at me and she said, all babies are real pale like that when they look. And I was like, no, I knew. But just the whole experience, to see your child, I would have been fortunate to see them, both of them birthed, and it just is such an amazing experience to watch them come into the world. And that bond, we would never experience as men carrying a child for 9 months, but actually to see them born, see your child born, it just does something to you. And I was able to cut both their umbilical cords, and I just had that special bond from there.
Mm, yeah. And I think we don't give, you could put it on mute. I think that you make a great point in talking about how, we as women, we always get that, that initial bonding with, from the moment we find out we're pregnant. And so sometimes fathers don't get that. They don't get that same, acknowledgement that, you bond with your children too, but just in a different way. And I think fathers don't get enough credit that fathers really do bond with their children, and they have that same instinct, that mothers have as it relates to wanting to protect and to nurture, but just in a different way. So I want to ask you, Ayyub, what was your experience? I mean, did you grow up with a father who was, involved and engaged and very present in your life?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, my father's been in my life my whole life. He passed 6 years ago, actually, June 8th, so just the other day. And, he was very present. My parents, they separated when I was like 12, but he was still very much present in my life, regardless of the relationship him and my mother had. He was very present in my life. meant a lot to me. He made sure that he instilled a lot of good principles in me. Love for family, love for community, and love for self. And just that constant reminder to be a good Muslim, to be a good person. And it was one of those things where when he passed, I was saddened by the fact that he couldn't see me become a father that I am today. At the time my children were so much younger, and so I wasn't able to experience a lot of things that I'm experiencing now, to have his counsel and to have him watching me, go through these experiences. And, I just reflect a lot of times that I think that he'll be, proud of who he raised,
Yeah. I would have to agree with you, Brother Ayyub. I mean, I've watched you, with your girls. I mean, the pictures, pictures, they capture just a moment, but those pictures, and then when you're around you and your family, it's like, oh yeah, that picture is so authentic. So I would have to agree with you. I do. I think your dad would be extremely proud of the father that you are. And it's so ironic that here we have two fathers with two different experiences as it relates to fatherhood. One with a very present father in his life, his entire life. And yet, Curtis, you didn't have that. You didn't have that specific role model, in your life. You said you didn't meet your father till you was in your 30s. So even after you had your first child is when you met your father. What was the driving force for you? Because Ayyub, people can say, well, Ayyub had that. He saw what a father looks like. He can emulate that and see in real time what a father does, how a father talks, how he interacts with his children. What was the driving force for you, Curtis, being that you didn't have that, to kind of know how to be a good father with your three sons?
I honestly think that, as we give women credit for just having this internal and instant like bond with their children, but I think as fathers we have that too. Even when we don't see the examples of it, I never tried to utilize my childhood as a crutch and not making excuses. And so, not even having a father, I didn't have my mother when I was younger, and so we bounced around to a lot of homes. But I think I was just born with that. I think it was just something that it was just in me that I know was right. I think we all know what's right and wrong, and I think we all know that. I don't understand how any man can watch their child be born and abandon their child. And so for me, that's this my approach. It just reflecting back, I looked, so many individuals that, whether it was, kids in school who parents would pick them up, and I would watch individuals and have their dads, and I yearned for that, but didn't realize until I was much older how much I missed that, and that was something that was really dear to me. And so my oldest son, Sinkaya, is joined.
Yeah.
How y'all doing?
Hey, Sinke, you just came in. I was going to introduce you. So for all of you that are watching, we do have viewers that are definitely watching the show right now. And Curtis's oldest son, the one that he's been talking about being born and watching him be born and what that meant to him, he actually just joined the show with us. And so Sinke is actually away in college working. So obviously having a good role model as a father, we see him being a very responsible young adult. And so, Sinke, you are coming in from where? Where are you calling? Where are you tuning in from?
I'm coming in from Connecticut in West Haven, but I just got off of work. So I worked 7 to 7 today, so I had a rush in the house today from everyone.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And you came at just the perfect time, because I am about to ask the kids that are with us to answer a couple of questions that I would love to ask. I was one of those kids that did. I had a very present father in my life. And as I mentioned before, I'm dedicating this entire series to him, because even now at 48, I miss him so much, and I miss his presence in my life. And so I would like to ask you, starting with you, Aziza, being a young girl like myself, I'm sure you're a daddy's girl with probably the rest of your sisters, having your dad in your life. And when I was your age, there were moments where it was like my dad's presence was annoying, because I couldn't get away with anything. And then there were those times that it was, those conversations with my dad that meant the most, even to this day, 40 something years later, I still remember those conversations. So I would love to ask you, Aziza, is there how do you feel seeing that there are a lot of kids and a lot of girls that do not have their fathers in their life, and how it impacts them in a negative way? How do you feel? What's your thoughts about having your father be so present in your life?
I'm grateful that I have him in my life because um both of my parents, both of their dads just passed away. Well, not just, but my mom's dad just passed away a couple weeks ago, and I remember his dad passed away. I remember his funeral slightly. I was young, but I still remember both of their funerals, and I think it was like at those moments the most is when I felt like really grateful that I have him in my life because it was like, what would I do if I didn't have my dad in my life? And it was just like, I cried, but I'm not going to cry now because, but yeah, I'm just grateful. I mean, we have our moments and like we don't get along, but I mean, we love each other overall, don't we?
Yeah, you see the interaction. It comes through. It really does. And Aziza, I can so relate to what you're saying because I lost my father when I was 40, and that feeling that you just described of what would life be like without him, I still feel that way, and there's still moments where I crave to hear his voice and talk to him. So I know exactly how you feel. Now, my dad, he used to do something called date night with me. It used to be on paydays on Fridays. Fridays was, there was Fridays that came that I'd be like, Dad, aren't we going out this week? He's like, I didn't get paid this Friday. So I looked forward to our one-on-one time together. And those were the defining moments where I got to talk to him about things that I thought, I wouldn't be able to talk to him about, or that he wouldn't understand. So is there a defining moment for you, Aziza, with your father that sticks out in your mind of something that no matter how old you get, it's something that you hold very special with your dad?
Mm, I don't know yet just because I feel like I'm so young. I don't think I know if I have something with him, but I know that one thing that I like is that we can be like playful, but like not too playful to like where somebody ends up getting hurt. But like a serious type of playful. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's like our
You're doing fine.
sisters, and so I think that's one of the things that I hope we keep like as we grow older and stuff. But I think that I'm pretty sure something will come up, but I just feel like maybe something else will come up since I'm so young right now. So,
But you love the fact that you can be playful with your dad and that your dad is there, period, because you have now watched your mom and dad lose their fathers and know how hurtful that has been for them. Right?
mm,
Yeah, yeah, great. All right, Sinke, I don't know where you went. Sinke, I have literally watched you from little. Your dad just, I mean, so proud to, have you as a son, and Sinke this, and this my twin, and this, your dad really is all into you and your brothers. So I want to ask you the same question that I asked Aziza. Being young men, especially African American boys, the narrative is always the father that's not around. So I want to ask you, Sinke, what has that been like having your dad from birth be in your life? Be very present and engaged.
Come here. Hold on, I'm getting the other brother. My bad.
Oh, okay.
Come here. Say hi. Look.
Hi. So we got all the brothers on the show today. Oh, hey, sweetie, how you doing? Okay.
But I'm sorry.
I'll ask you the question again. That's okay. Being that African American men, a lot of young men, we see the gang violence. We see boys joining gangs because they want to belong. Sometimes getting around the wrong crowd because they're looking to attach themselves to some type of role model. And I'm sure you have seen some of your friends who do not have fathers in their life and the negative impact it has had on them. What has that been like for you, being that you have the opposite, and that you're the exception to the rule, sadly, that you have a father that's been very engaged?
I could say throughout my life, especially from a young age, and then as I get older, I could see how not having my father around benefited me a lot, but also how it like not like my friends not having their parents very vocal in their life or kind of around. It definitely, I don't want to say deteriorated them, but like it definitely played a role in their life, not for the good. But I know with my father's always been, even if he's not blood, he's always been someone that like everyone gravitates towards. So whether it's my friends, whether people outside, everyone's always very like welcoming. He's a very he's like my twin, so I always get a lot of my characteristics from him.
Wow.
But I know, like, especially, it definitely helped me keep a like good head on my shoulders. And I don't want to say like I always think about what my dad would think in any decision I make, but like it definitely does play a part in my head. Like I'm always like, well, if I do this, what do my dad would think? Or if I don't do this, what do my dad would think? It's like it's a good thing. I don't want to make it seem like but now I'm always he's definitely always in my head. I'm always trying to like definitely make him proud.
Wow, that's an honor. That is great. So I want to ask you that, as I mentioned before, I want to ask you the same question that I asked Aziza, and you are a little older. So if there was a moment that you can think of just when you're thinking back in your childhood or even as an adult, is there a moment with you and your dad that is just a moment that you know forever will be embedded in your mind, that's a moment that is special for you and your dad, to you?
That's tough.
Because there's so many?
It's two of them, but the one that I think I always pop up in my head, and like I think I like posted for his birthday one year. It was he was in New York. We were getting ready for my high school basketball season, so he drove up to like this local gym that we had. It was like LA Fitness, and we basically worked out, and it was like our regular workouts that we've been doing since I was a kid, but like it was different having my friends actually there watching me actually work out and seeing how like we interacted and how just basically how like he would big me up even if I like get frustrated. And then after the fact, he had like his basketball gear on him still. Like we basically started playing basketball together, and that was just like a rare moment for me because I always remember like watching him when I was younger playing basketball, and I always wanted to play, but I'd be too young. And then now it's like I was at the gym playing, and I'm captain, and everybody asks me like, who am I picking up? I'm like, I'm picking up my dad.
Oh, that's cool.
But it was just weird moments like that. It's like, wow, I'm actually getting old, and I don't like it.
So, well, just make the rest of us feel real old if you think you're old, right?
My back's hurting already. Like, no, my knees.
Oh man. Thank you for sharing that moment, with us. So I have another one of Curtis's kids. But this one is a little different because Caleb is not one of Curtis's biological children, but I have literally watched Curtis in Caleb's life since Caleb was real little. And to see Caleb now, I'm like, is this the same person that was, this little kid that I remember? And so, Caleb, I would love to ask you now from your perspective, being that, again, just the same with Cinque, being a young African-American young man. And I know your biological father is in your life. What is that like having a stepfather? Because we hear the horror stories of stepfathers that come in and do mistreat their stepchildren. And so what has that been like, seeing that in your community? And what is that like having Curtis in your life? And how has that impacted you?
Well, first off, I'd start by saying that I'm grateful that Curtis is not one of them stepfathers that is just like not cool with their stepson. You don't care for them, they just care for their wife. I'm very proud of that. And me and Kurt, like we're just close. We're just close. I might overlook it because sometimes he might come off as stubborn, or I just think that in my head. but I appreciate that. But as an African American man, like just seeing all these stepfathers and fathers in the neighborhood, just hearing the narrative that they're not around for their kid, I'm just proud that Kurt is not part of that narrative. And I want to like get rid of that narrative because there's plenty of fathers in this neighborhood. Just because you don't hear about their relationship, don't mean it's not there. Like
Powerful.
even with my father, people think that we might not be close, but every time we talk, it's like we always been together my whole life, obviously, since birth. But even then, people still think we're not close. We just together, and it just feels like that's my friend, that's my father. Cause but Kurt, he teaches me manhood. He teaches me how to be a man, how to respect people, how to respect women. My dad is just like how to live life, how to survive. I'm just proud that Kurt taught me how to be a man.
Wow. So you have it doubly special because there's a lot of young men that don't even have one father, and yet you got two fathers that are definitely in your life. And I know Curtis is that stand-up dude because he talks very highly of your father. I've never heard him say anything negative. So it's great that two fathers can actually come together for the purpose of raising a positive young black man. And I love it. That we so need to hear this. And this is why Conversations with Asiya is so wanting to have these type of conversations, because we need to hear more of the narratives of, Black fathers, Latin fathers, in their children's life. So we have a comment from a viewer that says, so nice to hear a young guy talk about his stepfather. So that's great. So I want to ask you too, Caleb, is there a moment where, just in thinking back in your history and your childhood with Curtis, is there a moment for you that stands out?
I have a lot now that I think about it. But back then, probably like 2014, Kurt, he probably take me out to a park like 5 times somewhere, and he just worked me out. Even when I was younger, he used to be in the living room with me, playing with my toys, literally playing with me like he's a kid, just like me, just to make me feel comfortable. That's a special moment for me.
And I still didn't let him win.
You didn't let him win?
He's competitive.
He couldn't have that bragging rights over me. So we were playing with Blade, I think it was Blade or something like that. So, so I couldn't let him get the bragging rights when he was younger. So.
Wow. I love the narrative that we're having. Ayyub, I want to get back to you. And I want to ask you, you and your wife have been raising your daughters. And I learned something about your girls. They actually have their own business. They actually have your own business. And I remember in having Aziza come and talk to the girls in our youth entrepreneur program, she said that you and her mom are very engaged in, the marketing, the management of it all. What has that been like for you as a dad to kind of step in and, at such a young age, because she has younger sisters? So to watch your daughters and to create this kind of enterprise and family business, what is that like for you? And how does that make you feel about doing that with your daughters?
Well, we come from parents who were entrepreneurs ourselves, and so it's very familiar. It's learning lessons from when we were children growing up in that. How would we have done it better to get them more engaged with it? And that's really just bouncing ideas off of them and coming up with ideas that they want to do versus bringing them into our situation. And so it's exhausting at times because they're children. Sometimes they want to just go play, but it's like when you make that kind of commitment, you have to stick with it. And so it's really shown a level of strength and commitment in them that I've been able to see and have in this business that I don't think I would have otherwise been able to see. Because school is like a given, you're going to go to school, but to actually have to work at the ages that they are outside of school is something that's very admirable. And so it just teaches me a lot about their character and trying to really foster who they're supposed to be versus trying to mold them into something that I want them to be.
Wow, very good. Have you found that running the business has made you closer to Aziza and her sisters? And Aziza, I want to ask you the same question. Do you feel that, this other entity of running a business and this other interaction with your father, for the both of you, do you feel that it has created you to be closer?
I think so, because again, we had to work through some hard spots. Like she started the business when she was 8. She had a fashion design business, and that was very trying because she did some very big fashion shows where she was the only child fashion designer, and she actually had to sew all her garments and design all her garments and stuff. And a lot of times she wanted to stop. And so we had to kind of coach through that and push her through that a lot of times, and I think at the end of it, she was happy about it.
Right.
But during the process, it definitely was some trying moments. Yeah. But what you got to say?
I would say yes, especially during the times when we used to lend at places and we used to be like at the booth together for like long periods of time. But I would say me, my mom, and my dad got closer during those times because Jalila and Sarah used to go out and do stuff. So me and my parents usually would be at the booth. So I would say, yeah, it has brought us closer together sometimes. So yeah.
That's great. That is wonderful. And you're actually creating a legacy, a family legacy, that you're creating together with your father. And you was talking about, maybe as I get older, I'll have more memories. I think it's going to come from exactly what you're talking about right now. Those great memories that you have, I'm sure it's going to be part of that. So talking about business, Curtis, you actually have a family business, and yours was inspired because of your youngest son, who Sinke so beautifully was like, hey, welcome him. So tell us a little bit about your youngest son, his name, and why your business, the business that you started, what the business is about, and why this business is so special that you're doing with your son and the whole family. Because I see Sinke and Caleb, like the whole family is like on it. They marketing it. They ambassadors for the whole situation. So tell us a little, tell the viewers about this, and what inspired you to create this business.
So the business is Amir Wear. It's named after my youngest son Amir. He, God bless him. He's going to be 14 in a few days. Amir, Amir was born normal. He reached all his milestones early. He actually, one of the funny stories about Amir is that when we talking about reaching his milestones early, he actually had all his teeth early. And so he would be this baby, and people were like cute, and he would smile, and he would tap all these teeth, and people were like, wow, this kid got a lot of teeth. But unfortunately at age 2, he got sick, and we never really found out what made him sick, but he got extremely sick, and he wound up suffering a brain injury and encephalitis. He was in a coma for 7 to 8 days. And when he came through, he just wasn't the same kid. He was partially paralyzed on his left side. And so from just seeing him with so many tubes in him, knowing that he now has this slight brain damage, which puts him on a delay with his learning and being classified, as having a traumatic brain injury and on the spectrum. Over the years, he has endured so much, whether it's, various seizures, seizures occasionally, but he has this amazing smile. And there's just something about that smile that just lights up the room. And I started
I see Sinkay's face just now. Sinkay lit up when you said that.
And so it started to me where it was just something for him. The logo, it was actually a silhouette of his locks. And, for the power of social media, people started seeing it, and people started inquiring, like, hey, what's that? And from there, that's literally how the idea of Amir Wear was born, just fulfilling orders that way. And now I think we're into the 3rd or 4th year, and we branched out into hoodies and mugs and all type of apparel that we like to provide. Sinkay and Caleb are the unofficial models, and so when something is designed, they got to model it, and we take the pictures with them. But it's really, we do all the work in house, and so it's a labor of love, and we have opportunities where we do appear at pop-ups and things like that. But it's just my way of just celebrating him. You know, he may not necessarily understand the magnitude of Amir wear, but he knows the logo, and he knows and he loves when people see wearing this logo. And you know, it's always warm my hearts when people purchase something. And it's just their way of just actually taking part in the celebration of him.
Right. Well, we got our sweatshirt. We got our sweatshirt. So I want to ask Caleb and Cinque. So I'll start with Caleb. Caleb, how does that feel, you know, as you being that unofficial model, you know, for your brother and being able to celebrate, you know, him, and being that this is kind of like it is a family business. What is that like for you? And then I want to, you know, hear from you, Cinque, after Caleb.
Again, it just feels good to be a part of it because this is my stepfather, that's my stepbrother. It just feels good to be representing Amir and to be an unofficial model for it. It just makes me feel even better about it.
That free clothes, right? And supporting. I love it. Love it. What about you, Cinque? You know, how has that been with you or for you?
I'm honestly just waiting for my call from GQ because I'm waiting because I want a model now. But I mean,
You definitely have your father's sense of humor, because Curtis was like that in junior high. So.
But I know with me, I definitely with years of having my dad's support, and with anything I do, whether it was just anything, I can't even think of everything on top of my head. So now, when it's my turn to give him the same support he gave me for all the years and still is giving me, then it was just like easy decision to always post his stuff. Every time I would come down there, he would have something new, so he would want me to take pictures with it. So I would always do it and then send it to my friends and be like, "How does this look?" And that would just help build the buzz up more. So it's always been a blessing, especially that there is this family business and that we are a part of it. Is even more of a plus for us.
Oh, I love it. See, this is the type of narrative that we need to hear more of. So I want to get back to Ayyub and his daughter Aziza, because as I mentioned, you also have a family business. So Aziza, I'm going to give you an opportunity to tell everybody what your family business is all about, because you mentioned that you have your booths and you do these things with your parents, and they, you know, they push you. So what is the business that you and your sisters have that you have created for your whole family to work together?
So our business is called Jazz. It's an acronym for me and my sister's name. My middle child is called Jalila. Then it's me, Aziza, and then the youngest Sarah. And we have like super, super sensitive skin, and so we were just trying to like have like we were trying to have lotion and stuff, and we couldn't find anything that would like break our skin out and stuff. And so Jalila, she was like, "How about we just make our stuff?" And my
I
mom,
like Jalila, yes.
no. She was like, no. And then we kept on asking her. So then they finally said yes. And so that's how we got our body buttercream, our bath soap, and body polish. And it's just stuff that really helps, rejuvenates, and replenishes your skin and stuff. I have some on right now. That's one of my faces glowing.
Yes, girl, your face is popping. Yes.
But yeah, that's our family sister business. So those are our three main products, and it's something that we can do together. Mostly, my mom really makes the stuff, but we help choose colors, labels, scents, stuff like that. And so it's something that we can do together that we enjoy because we can actually use the stuff instead of not having anything. So yeah.
So Ayyub, if someone wants, I mean, seeing the glow on Aziza, and they're like, I want that pop on my skin too, where could they find you as far as your website, any social media handles? Where can they find you if they want to tap into, you know, and support this family business? How could they find you?
Well, Ziza can answer all of those questions.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we you can find us at Jazz Crafted on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, LinkedIn.
So how do you spell jazz again? Because if you hear it jazz, people will spell it Jaz. So how do you actually spell jazz?
Jas.
So it's jazz.
Jazz Crafted, and Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. and our website, www.myjazzofficial. And yeah, that's our website. You can also shop online on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
Yes, put that plug in. Put that plug in. So, Curtis, where can they find Amir wear? Because you have some great products from t-shirts to hoodies. I mean, I see it. So, if someone wants to tap in and support your family business with you and your boys, where can they find you, and how can they purchase your products and so forth?
So I just wanted to tell them we was actually just below just typing in and following you guys as well. So you can find us on Instagram as well and Facebook at Amir Wear 2007, which is the year he's born, and also amirwear.com. You can also take you to the website. If you visit either Instagram or Facebook, there's links in here will take you to the website if you want to purchase some of the items.
And how do you spell Amir? Because some people may not know how you spell Amir. So how do you spell Amir? Amir Wear.
Amir Wear is AMIR, and then Wear WEAR.
So it's one word, amirwear.com. That's where they can find you, and they can also find you on Instagram under Amir Wear as well, which they can purchase directly on Instagram.
On Instagram and Facebook, it's Amir Wear 2007.
Okay, so Amir Wear 2007. That's how they can find you on Instagram and Facebook.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Oh, this is what I'm talking about. We do. This is, people always thought, the Cosby Show was not real. I'm telling you, people, we got some real Cosby families out here doing it. You know what I'm saying? I love it. And I love the fact that I've been blessed to actually know you, see your children raised with you. And so this is a topic that I've been dying to talk about. And this is something that is prevalent in our communities. And so I was hoping that this discussion for the fathers that are listening, that may follow me, that are not engaged with their children for whatever the reason is, because this is not a judgment, but for whatever their reasons are for not being engaged in their children's life. Ayyub, I would love to get your thoughts on what message would you have for those fathers that for whatever their reasons are for not being engaged in their children's life, what would you have to say to them?
It's hard to truly give sound advice when you don't have the experience. I was blessed to be around a number of men who took care of their children regardless of whatever situation. And for me, it's just been a matter of understanding that if you don't, it's going to impact your children in a way that could be very detrimental to your lineage, and understanding that you are a part of something that's going to continue on. And where do you want your mark to be? How do you want your legacy to look like? Do you want someone to not mention your name, down your line? Do you not want to leave something, good memories for people? So just, I guess my advice would be, fight through whatever you have to go through to do your best to leave a positive impact on your children's lives. Don't ever give up, don't ever give up trying to do that. That would be my only advice. And again, it's coming from a place of where I don't have that experience. It's hard to really talk about it, because again, I've been around, even my friends, they've had their fathers in their lives,
right.
that I really associate with, hold their father very dear to their heart. And so it's a blessing that I've been in an environment like that.
It is. It really is a blessing. I was raised in that same type of environment. Most of my female friends, they were raised with their fathers as well, so that was kind of my little community is, all of us had fathers. And so we had surrogate fathers and surrogate mothers and aunties. So it takes a village. And so that it is truly a blessing when you're surrounded with that. So Curtis, what would be your thoughts to fathers, that are not engaged in their children's life? What would you have to say to them?
I would just say that there's really no excuse not to be in your child's life. I think oftentimes, when you have situations where you break up with your child's mother and, whether it's on bad terms and, that's the relationship that you two have. It shouldn't affect, the relationship that you have with your children. Um, one of the things that I see a lot of times that even also with men, with our egos, we allow our egos to get in the way. And especially if that young lady has moved on with someone else, there's no scenario that should stop you from seeing your children. Just to be part of your kid's life. A funny story that Caleb and I like to talk about, even with his father, we're like the opposite, but we have been to his open school nights together. You know what I mean? To be able to them to see that he has a support system. Caleb got, well, you wouldn't say he got in trouble, but there was an incident in school, and where they was talking about, I think, possible suspension. And when I'm looking at the policy, this is what your school handbook says. This is what, and so you're not going to suspend them on because it's not within your policy, whether it's a practice. And where his approach may be like, no, I'm going to be somebody else. But regardless of whether the approach was, we both had his back. And it wasn't about us having an ego, like, that's my son, is this your son? We both look at it like we both playing a role. And if you met him or you met me, you can see as two men just putting aside our ego and just understanding the importance of, it's not about us, it's about these children, it's about raising these young kings, these young queens, and making sure that they can surpass us in life. And that's really what it's about. And so I'll just say, man, get it together. There's absolutely no reason not to be in your children's life. I've been through every possible scenario, unfortunately, with my ex. But you have to get past that. Granted, there's going to be hurt. There's going to be times where, you feel like you've been disrespected. All those things like that, play a part of the ego. But put that ego aside and step up. And it's not even about the money. Sometimes as men, we don't have money, but your time is so valuable. That advice that you can give your child is so valuable. Just setting those teachable moments and just really just being honest with yourself and self-reflecting and wanting better for your children than you have for yourself, and not be selfish. And I would just be blunt and say it that way.
Wow, that's a powerful statement that you made. The late Nipsey Hussle said, "How do kids translate love?" And he said, "Time." That that's how kids translate love. You give them your time. That's what it is, and that is so true, because those are the memories that I have of my father. Is the time that he gave those date nights and going to the movies and going to eat and telling my father calling and saying get dressed up and making those moments special. That to me is because my father was not an expressive person as far as affection, or even articulate words like I love you. That was not his love language. But his love language was more about showing and giving me his time. And to this day, that's my love language. It's time. Quality time really means a lot to me. So obviously my father's impact has left an indelible mark on me. So I want to, ask on the flip side, and I've seen it from the women's perspective, where you have women who do play, unfortunately, that role of using children as a pawn to keep the fathers away. And I know, Ayyub, that's not your situation, because, alhamdulillah, all praise to Allah, is that you and their mom are still together, rocking and, holding that legacy down, but for those that, or others that you've seen, whether it's co-workers or just in your community, that you've seen that, I would love for you, Ayyub, now to give your thoughts as it relates to, the mothers that are doing that. And the impact that it's having on their children. What would be your thoughts as it relates to any woman that's listening, that has been the narrative in their life and in their children's life? What would you say to them?
I mean, I think that they have to be aware that they're going to be accountable for that. People don't remain children forever. So they're going to hear the side of the story of what happened. Why wasn't my father in my life? They're going to hear it. And so what do you want that story to be? Do you want it to be that you didn't do all you could to keep that door open? Or do you want it to be, well, I shut him out because I was sour, right. Or because like my man said, he didn't give enough money. Do you want to have that narrative for your children? And I know I wouldn't. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want my daughters to go through a situation, or if I had sons, to go through a situation where their mother kept them away from me because of anything. You know what I mean? That unless there was some harm being done to the children. That's the
Right.
only reason I can see where there will be a closing of the door if there was some harm being done to the children. Whether that's physical, mental, verbally, any kind of harm, it's not okay. You know what I mean? For children, because that could be very impactful for them too. And so they just have to be aware that, time is going to tell. Time is going to tell, and the narrative and the story, you're creating it for your children. So what do you want that narrative and that story to be?
Absolutely. Powerful, powerful. So sisters, I'm speaking to you directly. Sisters, if that's what it is, really reconsider, that process. I was a single mom, and I was one of those mothers that went out of my way. I would send photocopies of their report cards to their father. I would call them and like, look, as I mentioned, my oldest son is on the spectrum, and we used to have those IEP meetings. And although we lived literally in 2 different states, I would be like, call this number, I'll put you on speaker. Sisters, have your children involved, because as Ayyub just mentioned, your children will know what actually happened as they get older. They can tell, they'll be able to decipher truth from falsehood. And what you don't want to have is that your children resent you because you kept them away from their father, because that's time that once it's gone, you can never recapture. So please, remember that. Curtis, I want to ask you, if that's the narrative for the women, what would be your final thought? And then I have a question for the kids.
I would echo the same statement. Regardless of what you think you're gaining at the moment, like you think you're getting a leg up on them, you think you're being petty, and you think you're getting back at the father. You may be getting that temporary victory at that moment, but your children are losing out on a lifetime of potential memories and advice and examples that can be set for them. And so no matter how mad you are and how petty you can be, so to speak, there is absolutely no reason why, unless the brother alluded to, unless there's some physical harm being done, regardless of your status or how you ended, there's absolutely no reason. I can really understand for a mother utilizing their children as a pawn against their fathers. And like I said, the kids get older, and why even have let's be part of stopping that generational curse where we doing that. It's important, especially in these times, that as family, we need to see more examples of fathers in our children's life, and we shouldn't keeping that narrative going on that as men we don't want to, because we may have some men who may be on the fence, and that can be the excuse they can utilize. Well, she don't want me to be in their life anyway, so I'm not going to be in their life. I think if we can just make certain that we collectively make certain that we hold each other accountable, and we all come with our stuff, but at the same time, it shouldn't affect our children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. So and that is some great advice from 2, as I mentioned, awesome fathers. So that, they're not talking from a place of, and we're talking about 2 different spectrums here. We're talking about a family, a father who is still with, a one unit with the mother of all of his children. And then you have a father who is no longer with the mother of his children, and both are making it work. And so it is possible for the viewers that are watching, it's possible, no matter what your particular bag is, being there for your children, having fathers. And we can see the kids, they're so beautiful and so articulate. So you can see, the impact of having good fathers in their children's lives. So I'm going to ask the children this last question, and I'm going to start with Sinke. Sinke, is there something that you, as we're talking about awesome dads, is there something that you would like to say to your father because of him being in your life? I know your eyes just went like, what? You put me on the... My husband looks at me that way when I try to get him to be expressive. He's like, oh, here she go. So, but I gotta ask, and it's so important, Sinke, not because I want to put you on the spot, but I want you to think of the viewers that are watching that may have fathers who are not in their children's life, hearing from the words of children, what it means to have your dad. It may be the turning point for those that haven't been in their children's lives. So it's good for the soul for your dad, but it's also good for the soul for our community. So I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I would love for you to share, what would you like to say to your dad, because he has always been in your life?
He's doing that face right now that he want me to say something good and not mess up, so I gotta come through. But I just want to say that I appreciate you always, and uh,
I'm sorry.
I love you. I learned a lot from you for over the years, and I appreciate you always being there for me, even when times were rough. And I appreciate you for always being you and who you truly are for yourself and for the world to see. So I'll always love you for that.
Aw. Curtis, yeah, you need some tissue?
I'm sorry, we have a light man, and light was kind of like my eyes and stuff like that. So, and then we was cleaning up a little earlier. It was dusty, so
I feel you. I feel well. Get that dust out the way. Get that dust out the way. Caleb, what would you like to say to your stepdad, or as I like to say, bonus dad? What would you like to say, being that he was? There's a quote that says, stepfathers are the fathers that actually stepped up. So, what would you like to say to your stepdad?
Well, like you said, that with that quote, he's a father that stepped up for me, even though my father's still here, but he just stepped up for me. And I love him and I appreciate him for that, no matter how much he's been through when he was younger. He's come out, he has, like, speaking of when he was younger, like, there's so many people who's not supposed to be here right now. He's one of those people, and he's so sane. He's such a great man, and I appreciate him for that. So,
That dust is in the air again? Yeah, okay. Beautiful, beautiful words from two young Black men who are just, doing some positive things. One's in college, one is finishing up, and just, supporting their brother, and, helping to leave this legacy. So, Aziza, our girl in the house, what's one thing that you have to say as we close? What's something that as it relates to the children? What's something that you want to say to your dad, for all the things that he's been in your life, even though you're young? What would you like to say to your dad?
I don't know. There's like a lot of things I would love to say, but
say it.
I don't say it. But like, I guess I should say that I'm like grateful that I have you in my life and all the things that you've done for me, and just like the whole list of things that he's done for me, that he's done for my sisters, my mom, people in my family, just like everything that he's done in his life and for me, and I just appreciate it and stuff.
How does that make you feel, Dad? How does that make you feel that your work is actually being,
they show their appreciation, and so I'm happy when they show it, because sometimes it's a balance between spoiling our children and having them be grateful. It's a real balance in doing so, especially with girls, because you have to be a lot more gentler with them. Boys and girls both emotionally, but there's a lot of things that you can't really expose girls to, in an attempt to maintain their innocence, and being able to make sure that they understand what womanhood is. So as a father, there's certain things that we can't show daughters, you know what I mean? Because we just don't know. And so that's where, alhamdulillah, all praise due to God that I have a wife that I can trust in her raising my daughters 100%, because there are aspects of womanhood I just won't understand ever, and
is it a challenge for you being a girl dad?
No, it's not.
That aspect of it?
I wouldn't say it's a challenge, and again, I give credit to my wife for making it easy for it not to be a challenge in that regard. But there are things that I prayed for. You know what I mean? I prayed for them to be beautiful and to be healthy. I didn't pray for girls or boys. I prayed for just healthy, beautiful children. And I pray that continues, because like Curtis was saying, it could be one thing one day and another thing the next day. And so you just always have to be grateful for what you're blessed with, and just again give them experiences to where it can humble themselves and increase their level of gratitude for what they do have.
Right, right. Beautiful. Curtis, what's your response aside from the dust and everything being in the air? What would you have to say? Thank you so much though, Ayyub, for that, because that's powerful what you said. It wasn't even about praying for a boy or a girl. You just so happen to be blessed to be a girl dad. And you know, to hear your daughter say that about you, I know that this is maybe one of those special moments, I hope, in your memory. So Curtis, you know, what would you have to say, you know, for your two sons here that express, you know, what you've meant to them in their life? How does that make you feel?
You know, it means the world. You know, of course, it gets a little dusty in here and stuff. You know, it makes you realize that you are doing right by them. You know, I'm so proud of them both. All three of them. You know, Sinche, you know, the oldest, he is coming to his own. You know, Caleb, you know, the same thing. You know, they grow up so fast, and time passes you by, and it just like next thing you know, I can remember changing Sinke diapers, rocking him to sleep, and Caleb, you know, at 5, you know, just talkative kid, and now you lucky you get 2 or 3 words out of him. You know what I mean? And but I'm so proud of them both. They're both the sky's the limit for them both. And I'm just honored to be part of this process to watch them grow and become the great young man that I know they're going to become.
Beautiful. Curtis, when we were talking, you actually mentioned that there's a friend of yours that actually has an organization that supports fathers, and you know, fathers being in their children's life. And you asked if you could just mention where that was. So for fathers who may find that as a struggle, for whatever the reason is, and may want to have some assistance as it relates to being a better father, or maybe re-entering into their children's life, and what that process may look like for them, can you share with the viewers if they know someone who they can refer their friends to, and just for the fathers that are interested in maybe taking this up, where can they find that information?
So if you go to Instagram, you can look for the child support tour. This brother Javier, amazing thing when you think as men, we have this instant, we can't be social with each other and we eyeing each other, what's up, what's up. But him and I bonded on going through divorces, and just the struggle of maintaining your sanity and wanting to see your children, and just how like just relating to each other, hearing each other's stories, how it can be beneficial to other men. And so he has an organization that, and he's also even starting a movement where as fathers can come together and list the type of services that you provide. So if you're a professional and you work in the mental health services, have a network where a father who's going through it can actually log on, and we can be the support system for each other. He also has a great book, The Child Support Tour, where he talks about his struggles as well. And so just a beautiful thing with us as men. Um, and regardless of trying to be macho or whether we were tough guys when we were younger or anything like that, just being able to bond on the fact that we have a love for our children, and regardless, we want to make certain that we can see our children. And so, if you go on Instagram, it's called the Child Support Tour, and then there's a link to sign up for the network support.
So it's called the Child Support Tour. So tour is TOUR, right?
Yes, and it's on Instagram. It's all one word.
Okay. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I want to thank each and every one of you for being on the show. For the kids that came on the show, I know Sinke is moving around. He just got off work. I still want to thank him for taking the time. Sinke, if you could just put yourself on mute, because I'm not going to ask any more questions. I just want to close the show. I don't know if you have that mute button. Can you see it? I don't think Sinke can hear me, but we're gonna try to end this show. Sinke, can you hear? Can you hit the mute button?
Did it work?
Nope, we can hear you. There's like a little mic. There you go. So I just want to, Curtis is laughing over there. I just want to thank each and every one of you for being on the show with me, for the kids who came to share. Like I said, it's food for the soul. I mean, to see our kids, to be able to articulate in such a beautiful way how they feel about their awesome dads in their life, and to kind of be the spokesperson of their family, to share how they feel and the impact, and to have, Caleb so special and eloquently mention the fact of not only having his biological dad in his life, but also his bonus dad, Curtis, and how two men can actually come together to love on one child. And I can't stress it enough. It truly takes a village for us. And it starts, definitely with the mothers and fathers. And, we were created to have both father and mother because both play such a special role, and everyone has a unique way into pouring into that child. I know as a mother, when I had to raise my two sons and daughter, there were certain characteristics that I had to take on that wasn't meant for me. And that can be difficult trying to find that balance. So, having you father step up and just be like, look, I'm not only, making babies, but I am going to pour into my babies. I am going to love on my babies. I'm going to nurture them. I want to thank you on behalf of our community. And, on behalf of Conversations with Asiya, coming on the show to be able to share your journey as fathers and what fatherhood meant to you. And I pray that your words reignite fathers wanting to re-engage with their children and to help mothers who may have been the conduit of their children not being connected with their fathers, that this is a moment of rethinking that process now after hearing you and your beautiful children speak on the show. So for our viewers, I want to just share some of the comments before we leave. One of them just was like one word. And so it just speaks to how they feel about this conversation, which is just wow. And then we have the mother of Caleb. She was like, great conversation. And then we have, I had mentioned, I'm loving, this conversation. And one of the viewers said, yes, I'm loving it too. So as you can see, this was necessary. This is kind of like medicine for our community. And I just want to honor you as being the fathers that are doing what many think are not happening in our communities, that you do exist and that you are present, that you are engaged and you love on your children. And I want to thank you again. So for the viewers, thank you for another episode of Conversations with Asiya and joining us, sharing your comments, for our guests being on here. We are on YouTube. So if you're just signing in and you missed it, you can always go to our YouTube channel on at Asiya Nasir Shahid. And you can find this episode along with our past episodes that you might find just as interesting. Hit that subscribe button so that way you'll be notified of our future conversations and be able to plug in on time and be able to hear the conversations live. We have next week, we have 3 additional fathers coming to join us with their children to share their particular journeys, some from different ethnicities, so we can see from a cultural aspect, what fatherhood means and how that translates into our children. So kids, thank you so much. And Curtis and Brother Ayyub, thank you so much for joining us on the show. And for our viewers, see you, God willing, next Thursday for another episode of... Okay, Curtis, you want to say something real quick?
And so, yeah, I definitely wanted to say salute to the brother as well. I think as men, we don't do that enough for each other. And so I definitely salute you in a tremendous job that you're doing with your children. And also, I just wanted to thank you for this beautiful platform that you're providing. You're not necessarily for the fathers, it's everything that you do. I've watched your transformation over the years, and even when you came to one of my programs to talk to the girls and stuff. And so just wanted to salute you as well, and just how proud I am of you, of your progress and in your journey.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Curtis, for those kind words. For those that was watching, go visit Amir Ware, go visit Jazz Crafted and support these family legacies that are being left with these beautiful children. Support our community, support Black Dollars, Black Lives Matter, and on and on and on. So, thank you again for a beautiful show and a beautiful discussion. And God willing, next week we will tune in for another Conversations with Asiya with another great group of fathers that are really pouring into their children and into our community. Thank you and have a great night.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Good night.